Today we will talk about naming compounds, and to better understand this topic, I suggest that you should watch my previous video about chemical bonding. Just check the link below. So, in naming compounds, there are lots or different types of compounds, but we will go over first with the ionic compound. So, what is ionic compound and what are the rules in naming ionic compounds?
So, what is ionic compound? On my previous video about chemical bonding, we discussed what is ionic bonding or ionic compound. So, to check again, it is a combination of metal and non-metal elements. And let's go with the rules in naming ionic compounds. So, what are those rules that we need to understand? First rule is you have or always name the metal first as the name of the element. The second rule is name the nonmetal as the name of the element, but you have to change the suffix part into IDE. And I know, wala ka maintindihan sa ginghambal ko. But anyway, we will go to the next slide to better understand how to name ionic compound. Examples of ionic compound. So, to better understand how to name this compound or ionic compound, let's have an example. Now, we have an example already, but what is the first rule? So, always name the metal first as the name of the element. In this type of compound, it has metal and non-metal. Because when we say ionic compound, it is a combination of metal and non-metal. So, in this first rule, it says nga kinanglan ta pangalanan ang metal first, based on the name of that element sa periodic table. So the first element here is calcium, which is our metal. So kung ano ang pangalan sang ining element sa periodic table, kapihon lang na siya. And that is calcium. Now the next rule or the second rule, we have to name the nonmetal as the name of the element, but you have to change the suffix part into IDE. So, the same procedure lang. Kung ano ang name sang ikaduwang element, which is non-metal, sundon ta lang na siya kung ano ang iyang name sa periodic table, which is bromine. However, we need to change the suffix part into IDE. When we say suffix, meaning there is something or a word or a letter nga kinanglan ta i-add at the end of the word. So, since our second element is bromine, which is our non-metal, we need to change the suffix into IDE. So, instead of bromine, it will become IDE or bromide. So, this ionic compound is called calcium bromide. And let's have another examples in naming ionic compound. Next example is this one, and let's go back to the first rule. Again, first rule, always name the metal first as the name of the element. So in this compound, we have metal and non-metal. Always remember that in ionic compound, the first element on the left side is always metal, and then the element on the right side is always non-metal. So first is we need to name the first element, which is metal. So Mg, that symbol is magnesium if you are going to check that in your periodic table. So just copy the name, magnesium. And then the second element, which is H, the symbol H, is hydrogen in your periodic table. But the second rule is you have to name the non-metal as the name of the element, but you have to change the suffix part into IDE. It sounds confusing, but to better understand, again, the non-metal, which is the second element, which is the symbol of H, is hydrogen. Just copy that name on the periodic table, hydrogen, but always remember that you have to change the suffix part into IDE. Meaning the suffix part, we need to add IDE at the end of the word. This only applies on the non-metal, or on the second element of this compound. So instead of hydrogen, it will become hydride. Okay, there you go. So this compound is called magnesium hydride. Now let's have a practice to see if you really understand the topic that we discussed in naming compounds. So let's have a first example. What do you think is the name of this compound? Okay, that is sodium oxide. That's right. If you thought it is sodium oxide, then you're right. Congratulations. Now always remember that the first element, we don't do some changes in the first element, but we only do some changes in the second element, which is supposedly we have oxygen, but it changes into oxide. So we just add IDE suffix at the end of the word. So instead of oxygen, we make it oxide. So it is sodium oxide. Second example we have. Now try to name the second example. What do you think is the name of this compound? So this is, alright, lithium fluoride. Again, the first element, we did not do any changes on the first element. We just copy it from the periodic table. And then the second element, which is fluorine, we changed the name into fluoride because we added suffix IDE at the end of the word. So instead of fluorine, we change it into fluoride. So it becomes lithium fluoride for this compound. Next example. Okay, we have aluminum sulfide. Now, the same procedure, the same thing, we did not change anything on the first element, which is the metal. We just copy the name from the periodic table. And then the second element, which is sulfur, which is our non-metal, we made a change because we added a suffix of IDE at the end of the word. So it becomes sulfide. So aluminum sulfide. Regardless of the number, because we have number 2 and 3, or we have subscript of 2 for aluminum and then subscript of 3 for sulfur, it doesn't matter. For as long as we are naming ionic compound, we will just focus on naming the first element and then the second element, which is by adding a suffix of IDE. So congratulations, I hope you learned something on this topic. And thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you on my next topic again. Our next topic will be naming a variable.